Today, we're going to compare the Galaxy S20 versus the Pixel 3a. I know it's a budget versus flagship phone, so it's pretty unfair, but the Pixel 3a does take flagship quality photos. So this is the low light test of the front-facing camera, and I know the S20 is a bit sluggish during really low light, so I just want to see how well it can perform against a budget phone. For portrait mode, they both do a really good job. It just depends on the white balancing because sometimes the Samsung is a bit off and sometimes the Pixel is a bit off. Now during this time when we have to wear masks, the Samsung S20 tends to be finicky because on the screen it says it's ready to take portrait mode, but when I do it, it's not even working. And sometimes it does work, so it's really on and off. On a Pixel, it's really zoomed in, and since it's a single lens, that's all the option you have. And when you want to take something in your hands, it's pretty close up on the Pixel. The Samsung does have a telephoto option, so you can zoom in if you need more reach. But again, if you are taking a picture of something in your hands on the Samsung, you probably wouldn't even use the telephoto feature anyways because sometimes it just doesn't get the focus right. On the Pixel 3a, you can still zoom in portrait mode to get a bit more close up. For the Pixel, using portrait mode is easy because you just point shoot and it does all the work for you. Whereas on a Samsung, you would have to move around a bit until the screen says it's ready. But from my experience, it's really quick to recognize a lot of objects, so it's not a big deal. Now moving on to everyday situations, the Samsung S20 is going to be the better one because it has 3 camera lenses. And you can zoom all the way up to 30x on a Samsung S20, which I don't think is really useful to take pictures of, but just to see things. On a Pixel 3a, you can zoom all the way in, and doing max zoom in, it's still pretty good. It's not super sharp, and of course it doesn't beat out the Samsung, but the software is doing a really good job trying to keep the image looking best as possible. For HDR, on a Samsung is a bit inconsistent. Sometimes it looks great, and sometimes it's a bit dark. On a Pixel 3a, since the software is doing all the work, a lot of it will stay consistent, so usually you would get a well exposed picture. For low light, I would avoid using the ultra wide angle lens on a Samsung S20. It won't give you the best results. If you're in a city with a bunch of lights, then it should be okay, but it will still not gonna beat out the main camera lens. When you're zooming in into the pictures, I really like how the 3a does a good job keeping everything clean and almost or even sometimes beating out the Samsung S20. And that's only when you go past 3x. After that, when you go to like 5x or 7x or whatever, the Pixel 3a, the software really cleans up the noise and the artifacts and stuff, so that's when it looks better than the S20 beyond 3x. Now for the performance, even though the Samsung S20 does have the newer powerful chip, the Pixel 3a is still pretty smooth. And in really low light situations, the Samsung S20 gets really sluggish. When you hit the shutter button or even night mode, it does take some time for it to do its work, so the Pixel 3a seems to beat out on that in that certain time. Now moving on to night mode, they both do make a difference and you can see it. The brightness is increased by a lot and sometimes they both look pretty fake. Without the night mode, the Pixel 3 pictures are really ugly and it's really noisy, not too sharp, but after using the night mode, everything seems to be almost cleaned up. And if you want to see the night mode pictures right after, both of them do have to process, so it does take a while, like about 2 seconds, and then you can see the full picture. Now moving on to video, the Pixel 3 can only go up to 4K 30, and for stabilization, the ultra wide on a Samsung is probably one of the best ones I've ever used. The Pixel 3a seems to be really jerky, like when I'm panning around, it looks like it's trying to catch up to where my hand is moving to. For the main camera lens on a Samsung S20, it's smoother when I'm panning around, but as I'm walking straight, I realize that I can see more of my handheld movement. On a Pixel, as long as I'm holding straight and walk straight, it looks like it's more stable than the S20. HDR is pretty similar on both. I would say the Samsung is a bit better and the color is a bit off on both too. The Pixel is too blue and the Samsung S20 is slightly greenish yellow. 4K 60 is an option for the Samsung S20. The stabilization is of course jerky and it looks like it's off, but it is nice to have if you want to do some slow motion or just slow down your footage. Next up is 8K, and both 4K 60 and 8K, you can only use the main camera lens, you can't use ultra wide or telephoto, but panning around is still smoother than the Pixel 3a, it's less jerky, but in nighttime when you're panning too fast, you can start to see a stutter and it just doesn't look too good. So 8K is best when you're using it during daytime. Now moving on to low light, the S20 is the winner here. There are a lot less micro jitters and when I'm panning around, it doesn't give off that slow shutter speed look. Now I will say in my experience, the Pixel phone is probably up there in terms of video, even though it's not meant to be or has the best video, but for micro jitter wise, is one of the cleaner ones. So overall, the Samsung S20 is great for the people who just want a lot of options and variety, whereas the Pixel 3a, they're good for the average people who just want to take a picture and it just looks good. And it's really simple to use. Even though it's a budget phone and it costs like 3 times as cheap, it still takes quality photos, like flagship photos. So that is my comparison. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Follow me on Instagram, give a like, subscribe, hit the bell, and thanks for watching.